Ladies and divas, this is SuperZombGBBQ, and today we're going to be talking about a WrestleMania Fusion Focus. What's a Fusion Focus? Well, if you have been following my channel for a while, you would know that back into Series 1, the WWE SuperCard, I made a series comparing all the fusions together and making recommendations as to which ones were the best, and also through which ones were the best in terms of overall stats, which ones weren't so great, and which ones you guys want to be aiming for to get pros of if you are lucky enough. And that is exactly what we're going to do here, but it's going to be a specific format. I'm going to run through you very quickly. First thing is that we're going to be running from an order of looking at the overall ranking of the fusions first of all, so which one's the best, which one is technically the worst. And also we're then going to look at the individual cards and run through what they're good against fusion wise. We're talking the other fusion cards that are available, and which other cards they are specifically good against and bad against when it comes to the normal event cards. You guys and gals know which card is overall the best, or one that you want to put into your King of the Ring, Road to Glory, or also Ring Domination teams, or even PCC teams. Now, I'm going to bookend it with the best and the bests, because there's two joint best cards, and I'm going to run through the individual worst ones that I believe are in the lineups in a moment. Let's start off with the individual ranking of each fusion. Now, it's actually a tie for first place in terms of overall stats. Overall stats, it's Brock Lesnar, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and The Rock all have the same overall stats. However, that's not to say that they're the best cards. John Cena and Triple H are in second, or technically you could say fifth, with equal stats. Now, Macho Man is a criminally low by almost 80 points compared to the ones at the top at 5209 overall stat rates, which means that overall when he's a pro, he is going to be way weaker than pretty much every other fusion going. A couple other small stats that you should know are that we have 3 cards in the WrestleMania fusions that do have the best stats in the game so far. First of all, Brock's power, Taker's toughness, that's Undertaker just to clarify, and The Rock's charisma are the best in game, so no one else in the game can beat those cards in those stats. Let's talk about the cards and what they're good and bad against, and I'm going to start off with the beast incarnate, Brock Lesnar, and we're going to talk about who he is good against first in the fusions, who is bad against in the fusions, then who is good against in a normal lineup of cards, the event cards, and who is specifically bad against. When I say weak, by the way, if I say weak or bad, it means that he gets what we call free statted, which means he loses 3 or 4 stats, and it's a 75% chance, or close to that, that he is going to lose. The actual percentages take a lot more to work out, but yeah, who is strong against, who is bad against, let's go! So Brock Lesnar beats John Cena and Triple H's fusions in 3 stats. He loses to no one in 3 stats, so he's one of the stronger cards. Otherwise, he's quite a straightforward power and toughness card, very strong, beats a few cards in speed. I'll tell you what, overall, if I had a pro of him, I'd be leveling him up in power and speed with a little bit of toughness at the end, because his power needs to be the best of the best, and the speed potentially is another element that can catch a few people out. Now, outside of that, going to the other cards, he's specifically great against Bray Wyatt of all cards, and he's good against Bray Wyatt in 3 stats, and also Money in the Bank Roman and Samoa Joe. Specifically, he's bad against Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose event card, he loses in toughness, speed, and charisma. Now we looked at Brock, let's look at one that maybe isn't so great, and we're going to talk about John Cena. Now, John Cena's WrestleMania Fusion card is surprisingly weak. And the reason why it's surprisingly weak, and I'll show you in a second, is because he does actually lose to Brock Lesnar, we've just spoken about him, and Undertaker and Austin. He is specifically good against the Macho Man Randy Savage, who we'll talk about in a second, and he's kind of okay against Triple H because he wins in power and draws in toughness and speed. But overall, they kind of match up. They're kind of 50-50 against each other. Now, outside of the fusions, he is specifically great against Sami Zayn's event card, but he's bad against quite a few cards. And this is why he's one of the weaker cards. He's not quite Macho Man Randy Savage bad, but he's weak, okay? So let's talk about who he's bad against. Andre the Giant, Bray Wyatt, Money in the Bank Roman, Nakamura, Money in the Bank Cena, the new one that's just come out, Money in the Bank Rusev, and Samoa Joe. Of those cards, he sucks against. Literally, it's not worth putting in your deck. But if you can have him go against a Sami Zayn, he's great in power, toughness, and charisma. You got everything sorted. I mentioned about Macho Man Randy Savage. We're going to move on to him right now. Now, unfortunately, the only thing that's really going for Macho Man Randy Savage and John Cena are their images are pretty decent. Especially Macho Man Randy Savage. I can imagine a lot of people taking him over from Season 2 to Season 3 if they do a loyalty fusion kind of thing with Season 3. Now, Macho Man Randy Savage beats no one in free stats. No one. None of the event cards. In fact, you know what? I'd say he's so weak, some of the normal WrestleMania pros probably beat him in free stats. It is ridiculous how bad the card is in overall stats. It's great against normal cards, not so great against anything that is an event card. A Money in the Bank card turns to be a fusion card. He loses to The Rock in free stats, but in fairness, he doesn't lose to anyone else because he's got speed and charisma on his side, which no other card have. Which is really strange while The Rock is actually faster than Macho Man Randy Savage, but that's not for me to talk about. Anyway, he's specifically good against, as I said, no one. He doesn't have any particular benefits in terms of cards that he should be fantastic against or characters, which is crazy for Macho Man, given in Survivor Throwbacks, he was the best card, bar none, out of any of the other cards that are available. Sure, he didn't have a benefit in power and toughness, but Christ, seriously, he had speed and charisma in abundance. Outside of that, this part's not going to be easy to say. He is beaten in free stats by two specific cards, Bray and Samoa Joe. Bray Wyatt's where we're up to through events now, just in case the tier carries on for a little bit longer for Season 2. But where he loses is quite hilarious. He loses to every single speed and charisma card in 4 stats, apart from Money in the Bank Seth Rollins. Crazy. Power, toughness, speed, charisma, he loses in 4 stats. Everyone but Rollins. Money in the Bank Rollins. Unreal. For a legend, that's absolutely insane that they've downvalued him so much. Let's move on to maybe a slightly better card to talk about, and that is The Undertaker. The Undertaker is a great card, but doesn't really have many specific plus points. He's more of an overall card that could be useful if you level him in the right areas and token in the right areas. He does beat John Cena in free stats, which is similar to another card we're going to go through in a second. Loses? No, doesn't lose to many other cards in many stats at all. I think it's 2-statted by everyone, but not free stat. Other than John Cena, doesn't free stat anyone. He doesn't specifically lose against anyone, but outside of that, he's not great against anyone either, because there's not many specifically toughness based cards other than Nakamura or Dean Ambrose. Now, who he's bad against, there's not many, but let's just say it's more than some of the better cards. AJ Styles, Andre the Giant, and Money in the Bank Roman, who he has a specific weakness against. But with, for the likes of, for example, Andre the Giant, if you used to put a lot in speed, he potentially might be able to beat him in 2 stats, but that's really risking it, if I'm going to be honest with you. But Money in the Bank Roman Styles are who he is specifically weak against. Let's go on to another legend in the business, Triple H. Not that Triple H. We're going to go for the other Triple H, which is just here. Now, this Triple H is very similar to John Cena. He doesn't freestat anyone, but he does have a good ratio against Macho Man Randy Savage. Against John Cena, he's kind of okay. They tie on a lot of stats, but he loses in free stats to Brock Lesnar. Now, in terms of cards outside it, it's very similar to John Cena in that aspect. He's great against AJ Styles, just to clarify, but he's not brilliant against pretty much anything else. He loses in free stats to Andre the Giant, Bray Wyatt, Dolph Ziggler, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, Nakamura, and Rusev Money in the Bank. Yeah, he's not brilliant, purely because his speed is putrid. I mean, sorry, did I watch wrestling? I know Triple H isn't the fastest guy, but, you know, he's not Big Show, for Christ's sake. Anyway, but let's move on from that and talk about who I believe the strongest card out of the fusions, which is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, the reason why I think Stone Cold Steve Austin is a fantastic card, he's not weak against anyone, very similar to Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. Where Stone Cold is great against is John Cena, who isn't great against Fusion John Cena at this point, but he doesn't lose to anyone in free stats, apart from Money in the Bank John Cena. So he free stats one John Cena, but losing free stats to another John Cena, which just confuses me. But one of the reasons I think he is so great is that 3 of the core cards of WrestleMania tier, whereas I would say 2 of the core cards for Brock Lesnar. We're talking about Andre the Giant, Nakamura, and Money in the Bank Roman Reigns, which are some of the most used cards in WrestleMania tier. This guy, free stats, and it's great. If you were to level this card up in toughness and charisma, you pretty much got a winner, and you won't have a problem at all against any of the other cards. Toughness and charisma is where this guy is famous for. I mean, yeah, he should have a bit more power. In fairness, I would have put Stone Cold as the best fusion, bar none, like he's the best WrestleMania card, bar none. Card, great image, love the WrestleMania 19 cutout they've got of his him doing the entrance. Amazing. To one card that is one of the strongest, to one of the cards that actually isn't that great considering the kind of level superstar he is, and that is The Rock. And that's because he only actually beats one card in free stats, which is Macho Man, but he doesn't lose in free stats to anyone because of the fact that his speed and charisma are the best stats that he has, which is quite insane. Charisma, not surprised, but speed? I mean, overall his stats are kind of good, but I'm really surprised by the fact that he's got the best speed out of all of the fusions. However, that doesn't transfer across to the other WrestleMania event cards that are available, because he is not specifically great against anyone. No one. Literally, he is possibly the weakest of the best cards in the fusions, but he does only lose in free stats to 2 people, and that's AJ Styles of all people and Samoa Joe. My personal suggestion as the best card out of the fusions is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Some will argue it's Brock Lesnar, some will argue that it's Undertaker. But one of those 3 cards you've got and you're absolutely golden. However, let's be honest, the fusions are all about the Divas and all about Vince McMahon's support card. Because if you don't have the WrestleMania Fusion Divas, you are pretty much done for anyway. The WrestleMania Fusion Divas are way stronger than the normal Divas in the tier. And just like Becky Lynch, they are slightly overpowered. Now, if you got yourself a Lita WrestleMania Fusion, count yourself lucky, because Trish is not brilliant. She's great in power and charisma, and if we get a toughness and charisma or a toughness and speed card, she's okay. But Lita and her 2 stat each other. Becky Lynch, Money in the Bank Becky Lynch, as far as she's concerned, she comes in and kicks Trish's ass in free stats, and it's almost impossible for her to beat Lita in free stats, meaning that Lita is the card of choice. In fact, it's actually quite easy for you to beat Becky in free stats with Lita, which is quite insane. If you've got yourself a Lita Pro, then be very happy with it. Trish Pro, in fairness, will be just as good. If you've got yourself both, then just GG, game over, you've won. And if you've got yourself a Vince McMahon or 2, which I have, then yeah, that card is insane and wins King of the Rings for fun. But that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think the best fusions are in the comment section below. Also, let me know what your most recent WrestleMania fusion was. That'd be awesome. I will see you all later on. If you can remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel, that'd be amazing. If you can also remember, in the description below, I do keep my Instagram, Twitter, and Discord, as well as my Twitch details for live streaming in the description. Feel free to follow on those. And that'll be it from me, apart from one last thing, and that is, well, you guessed it, Sonny!